All right, this is the second part to the study guide video answer key, taking a look at number 9. Number 9, before we combine like terms, I see that there's a subtraction symbol in between, so I am subtracting these two. So what I like to do is just distribute the negative to each term before I combine like terms. Okay, so that becomes a -3, a -2p squared, and a positive p. Okay, now I can combine like terms like I did in the first problem. So I'm looking for the like terms. I start with the highest degree, so I'm looking at that p squared. -2p squared can be combined with the 7p squared, and that's going to give me 5p squareds. Okay, now I'm going to look at the p terms, p and -8p. If I put those together, I'm going to get -7p. And then the -3 and the 6 makes +3. All right. Next question, find the product. So what we're doing here is multiplying. That's what product means. So we can distribute, or you can use the generic rectangle. For those that like the generic rectangle, remember you already have the outside when you have the product. So you could put your 2x and your +6 and your 7x plus 2, and you're finding the inside this time, so it's opposite of factoring. 2x times 7x is 14x squared. 7x times 6 is 42x. 2x times 2 is 4x. And then 2 times 6 is 12. And now you're adding everything together inside that box. So we're going to have 14x squared plus 46x and then plus 12. Now if you wanted to do that without the generic rectangle, you would just show your distribution with arrows like this. So I need to take the n and multiply it to each of the terms in the other polynomial, in parentheses here. So n times 4n squared is going to make 4n to the third. N times -2n is -2n squared minus 7n. So that's the first term. And then we're going to switch over, and I'm going to switch colors here and do the 8 to all three terms. So 8 times 4n squared is going to give me 32n squared. 8 times -2 is -16n. And 8 times -7 is -56. Okay, and then we can combine like terms. And notice I stacked them this time. So I'm just going to add the like terms, which should just go down. So 4n to the third. -2 and 32 is going to be 30n squared. And -7 and -16 is going to be -23n. You still have your -56. And here would be our answer. Okay, name each polynomial based on the degree and number of terms. So there's going to be two names for these. All right, so this one's a degree 2 for number 12. So because it's degree 2, we call that quadratic. And then since there's only two terms, we call that a binomial. So it's a quadratic binomial. Don't forget all the other terms though. You've got constant, linear, quadratic, and cubic. And then in terms of the number of terms, it's monomial, binomial, and trinomial. Number 13 is another binomial. This one has a highest degree of 5. We don't have a name for a 5th degree, so we just call that 5th degree. And this is a binomial because there's two terms, binomial. All right, there is a worksheet back from that unit that has all of those terms written on there that we took notes on. If you need help, go back and take a look at that worksheet from that unit. Okay, so this is what we've been doing most recently. So here we are factoring on number 14. I like guess and check. So what are the factors of 49 that had to get 0 since the middle terms is gone, right? The middle term's 0. So it's going to have to be n times n to get n squared. And then to make 49, I'm going to have to do 7 and 7, 1 plus and 1 minus. And that would give me the 0 that I'm looking for in the middle. So that's factored. Okay. Number 15, I'm going to set up my two parentheses. To get x squared, it's x times x. To get 21, factors of 21, but then they're going to also give me 10x, are going to be plus 7 and plus 3. If you're wondering, could you use the generic rectangle for this? Yes, you could, but I'm just showing you guess and check for the sake of time. All right, number 16, I'm going to set it up again. To get b squared, it's going to have to be b times b. And then factors of 56 to add to get 15, plus 8, plus 7. If I multiply that out, that should work. Okay, so I went through those quickly, trying to make this video go over all the answers here, so I don't want to make a third video. Numbers 17 through 19, we are solving. You can solve by factoring, you can solve by quadratic formula, or complete the square. I would recommend doing factoring or quadratic formula. Those two are easiest to remember. Number 17 looks like I should be able to factor it, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, so I'm going to set up my parentheses. To get a squared, it'd be a times a. Factors of 10, that can give me negative 7. It's going to have to be a negative 5 and a negative 2. Those multiply to get positive 10, but add to get 7. Now, since I'm solving, I can't stop there. I got to find the solutions. So what we do is we take each parenthesis and set it equal to 0. So a minus 2 equals 0, and a minus 5 equals 0. If I add the 2 over, I get a equals 2. If I add the 5 over, I get a equals 5. So the solutions for this problem are 2 and 5. That's where it crossed the x-axis. Question number 18 looks like another one that I could factor pretty easily, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to set up my two parentheses. V and V makes V squared. Factors of negative 48 that can give me a 2 are going to be 8 and 6. Since the middle term's positive, I'm going to want a positive 8 and a negative 6. And that would multiply out to give me that trinomial. Set each factor equal to 0, and we get 6 for this answer, and we're going to get negative 8 for this answer. Number 19, 4b squared minus 17b minus 15. I could probably factor that one, but with that leading coefficient, sometimes it's difficult to figure it out. So let me try quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And if I plug everything in, I'm going to have a is equal to 4, b is equal to negative 7, and c is equal to negative 15. So if I plug those in, I have negative b, which is a positive 7, plus or minus negative 7 squared minus 4 times 4, because that's my a term, and then times negative 15. And that's all over 2a, and a is 4. All right, so now if I simplify that, I should get the roots. Let me go ahead and simplify that. When I simplified underneath the square root sign, I got 289, so it's 7 plus or minus square root of 289. When I square root 289, I get 17. So I'm going to do 7 plus 17 divided by 8, and 7 minus 17 divided by 8. 7 plus 17 is 24. 24 divided by 8 is 3, so 3 is an answer. And 7 minus 17 is negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 8 is negative 1.25. So these are the solutions. You don't have to find the opposites of that. Quadratic formula gets you the exact solutions. Those are where they'd cross. Okay, now I'm going to graph number 20. So sketching a graph, Things that we like to find are the roots and the vertex and the y-intercept if possible. So I'm going to start by finding the roots. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and factor this. Alright, so as I was trying to factor this, I realized that it doesn't factor down, which means that the roots are going to be square root numbers, irrational numbers. So since I'm just graphing, I don't really necessarily need those. I'm just going to plot some points. So I'm going to just make a table since I can't find the accurate roots. Okay, so we've done this before. We can make tables. And I'm going to plug in some numbers. And I'm looking at what they're kind of suggesting to plug in. I'm going to start with -4. That should be a good starting point. And when I plug -4 in for x, my output, and if you want to try this, pause the video and then give it a shot, but my outputs should be -4. And then when I plug in -3, you guys can go ahead and give that an attempt. I get -2. When I plug in -2, I get 4. When I plug in -1, I'm getting 14, so it starts to really jump after that. So let's plot the points that we have. -4, -4 would be right here. -3, -2. -2, 4. And you can see I have this part of the parabola, so now I'm going to try typing in -5 and seeing what that looks like. If I plug in a -5, I get -2. And now that I've seen that reflection happen, I know that this is actually the axis of symmetry, and I could reflect this point over. And we want to have 5 points when we're graphing. So there's the graph of that quadratic. Number 21, I'm going to graph those two inequalities. So they're already in slope-intercept form, and yours will be the same. So I'm going to go up to 3, plot a point, do my slope of 5/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. That's off the graph. So I'm gonna reflect that downward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And then this line should be dotted because it's just a greater than. And since it is greater, I need a shade above this line. Okay, and then for the other equation, I need to go down to -1, plot a point, and then do a slope of 1/3. So up 1 over 3, and then I can reflect or do that downward, down 1, backwards 3. And then I can connect those. And once again, it should be a dotted line. When I shade this one, I'm going to want to shade a less than is below, so I'm shading below this line. And then you can see the overlap. The overlap is that really small region, so I'm just going to darken that in with purple right here. So here is the overlapping region, and that's the solution that we're looking for. Anything in that region is an answer. All right, last few questions. What is the vertex of the quadratic function? At this point, hopefully you guys know it's the highest or lowest point on the graph of a quadratic. What do we call a term without a variable? We call that the constant term. Which of the following shows x squared plus 9 factored correctly? That's a multiple choice option on the test, of course, and that's going to be non-factorable because this is not a difference of squares and there aren't factors of +9 that get 0. Is the graph of this quadratic upward or downward? This one would be downward because the leading coefficient's a negative number. So we'd say downward. And the last question is, what was your favorite lesson that we've learned throughout this school year? Please describe what you learned in that lesson and let me know what made it your favorite. All right, guys, this is your last video series of the semester. I hope you found these videos helpful. Thanks for watching and good luck on the final.